Information about the world of running, inspiration to fuel passion and excellence, and ideas for making connections and finding community. You're listening to A to Z Running. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the A to Z Running podcast, where our mission is to help runners thrive. I'm Andy.
And I'm Zach, and on the show today, professional marathoner Carrie Verdon discusses running through the different stages of life and how she rediscovered motivation and confidence. And stay tuned after that for the latest from the world of running, including a strange track meet in the middle of the ocean, the world's greatest running team, and 1,000 marathons.
By one person.
That too.
Impressive.
Now, make sure before you do anything else, this is the moment in the show when you must pause and go to AtoZrunning.com and click the word follow, because that way you'll be able to know all of the most important things you need to know.
Which help you thrive.
And if that's not enough for you, find us on the places where you like to find your content. We're on the podcast platforms. We're on YouTube. We're on some of the social medias, or at least the ones that we're on. And you can find us at AtoZrunning.
Mm-hmm. On Instagram, I posted a little bit about runcations because a lot of our athletes have been going on trips recently, and they've been posting some amazing photos of different places that they've been running, and like many of you too.
Sunshine.
With sunshine, warmer places than here. And I wanted to mention a few of those places. Chelsea was in Italy, Erin was in Bentonville, Ann was in St. George, Dan O in Florida, Kathy in San Diego, and so many more. I didn't even get to share all of them with you, but it had me like dreaming of amazing places to go on runcation. Now, in the post, I had teased you that runcation also means something completely different than going on a running vacation. Zach, do you know what it means?
I don't know that I want to.
Well, no one else knew either, so you don't have to feel bad, even though I put you on the spot.
I didn't
so runcation
say
means...
I didn't know. I said I didn't want to.
It means the manual removing of weeds, which many of you will be doing soon because it's springtime, or at least we're hoping it stays springtime here in Michigan.
Weeding. Okay.
Yep. So there you have it. Runcation means a couple different things.
Interesting. Well, in case you don't have enough interesting things on your mind to think about yet, we've got a lot of good ones in store for you here today. So let's get started.
Have you ever had a period of time where you had to take a break from running, or you took a break for your own personal reasons, and you return to running with more clarity? Perspective can help us develop confidence. On the show today, our guest, Carrie Verdon, tells her story, a little about Carrie. Carrie's a first grade teacher and professional runner. That means she has a lot of endurance. No, it's not. That's out of Boulder, Colorado. She runs with Team Boulder and is coached by Lee Troop. In recent years, Carrie has hit numerous PRs, including the 10,000 meter run on the track where she ran 31:37. We're going to talk a little about that in the show. Half marathon of 1:10, marathon 2:31:51, and she placed 9th recently at the U.S. Cross Country Championships. Now, Carrie is a speedster on the track with the 5,000 and 10,000 meter events, which she has run at the Olympic trials as well. And that's not where the story of running began for Carrie. She was a youth runner, and she immediately caught attention earlier on. She was 11th at the California State Meet as a freshman in high school, and then she ended up winning the meet as a junior and senior in high school. Now, we're going to talk more about Carrie's journey with running and how confidence has played a role in that journey too. So let's hear from Carrie. Hi, Carrie. Welcome to the A to Z Running podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Well, we're especially happy for you to be here because this is your spring break. This is like precious time. So thank you for spending the time to be with us here on the show.
Yeah, it's perfect timing for me. It's great. Now I have time in the middle of the day to do whatever I want. So this is great.
Fantastic. Oh, that's so good. Well, we just told our audience a bit about your running journey. And I think the overarching conversation will be about returning to confidence. And I'd like to jump right in and kind of discuss your early success in high school and, you know, coming in right as a freshman and being 11th in the state of California. What was it like to have such success at an early age?
Yeah, running for me in high school, I kind of came into it because my parents told me I had to. I was using running as a way to train for soccer. And in California, we have cross country in the fall, and then soccer is actually a winter sport, which is a little bit different than other states, just because the weather's so nice year round. Um, so I kind of was forced into running by my parents. I was moving to a new school and they were like, "Oh, it's a great way to make friends." And I think that's what originally drew me in and kept me in the sport for a while, was just like the camaraderie of the girls that I got to train with and just like play with, honestly. Like we would just go on all these really fun runs. And I did have pretty early success, which I think kind of just got me, it like got my toes wet, and it kind of made me like more interested in like pushing myself more and seeing what could happen. So yeah, it was just really, really fun. The state of California obviously has really great running at the high school level. So there were definitely people that were far better than me. So it kind of got me excited, like, oh, if I'm doing well as a freshman, like what could I be doing in like a year or two? So it definitely like pulled me in and held me in the sport of running.
Mm-hmm. Was that a hard thing though to transition from soccer, or what was that? Did you continue to play soccer? I guess I should ask that first. So what was that like transitioning?
Yeah, I continued to play soccer. So through I remember the first fall that I was training for cross country, I would go to cross country practice, and then I was on a club soccer team, and I would go to soccer practice like right after cross country practice. And I did that all through the fall, and then I was on the high school team in the winter. And so, yeah, I think I played high school soccer for 2 years before just focusing on running.
Mm-hmm. That's great that you were able to have the experience of both. I know that that can be a hard decision to make for many young people because it seems like you have to just choose one and you really can't do more than one thing. And they start this kind of at an early age, like even in middle school, making those kinds of decisions. Well, I'm so glad that soccer brought you to running. You know, as a fan of the sport and seeing all the things you've done, I'm really glad that soccer introduced you to this love of running. So, how was it having early success? Did you just enjoy it all the time? Was that like a carefree type of experience, or was it hard?
I think at first it was definitely carefree and just really fun. And then there were expectations and pressure that were put on me to, perform better. And it wasn't, expectations and pressure aren't a bad thing, but I think sometimes when you're young and you don't really know how to deal with that, it can be a bad thing. And I think towards the end of my high school career, it was definitely a burden that I was carrying on myself, like coming into races, instead of being excited to see what I could do, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm expected to win this. Like, what if I don't win it? And so I kind of got caught up in this like negative self-talk in a way, like of the pressure. Like that's kind of how it came out with me, is just a lot of negative self-talk. Like, what if I don't win? Instead of thinking, what if I do? How cool would that be? It was like, what if I don't? And so that was hard, and it definitely made things a little bit less fun, but I think I handled it pretty well. I had a great support system in high school with my parents, my friends, my teammates, my coach. Yeah, and then transitioning to college, like I was the freshman again. So then kind of that pressure kind of faded away for a little bit. So it was like up and down, I'd say. Like there was definitely some negative aspects of it, but good things too.
Mm-hmm. It kind of causes you to grow more because handling
Definitely.
pressure brings on a whole another set of character development. What are some of the things that you learned as you had to experience that at a young age?
Yeah, I think it definitely builds a lot of really great character traits. Like, I learned how to work hard and be disciplined, and handle that pressure in like a positive way. I think it definitely helped me grow in general. I don't think anything super negative came from it, but yeah, I definitely have grown, and I'm really thankful that I was at that high level in high school, because I think coming into college, then I knew how to handle that pressure later on when that pressure was put on me again.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about college. Can you talk our audience through a little bit what that was like for you?
Yeah, so I went to CU Boulder for college, and it was really, really fun, except pretty healthy. And I kind of had some pretty high expectations for myself. And the coaches had pretty high expectations for me. And then I started to get into this cycle of injury. And from then on, I think my junior year, I had a stress fracture, which took me out for the whole year. And so I redshirted that year. And the next year, I had another stress fracture. And I just got into this cycle of injury that I couldn't get out of. And so I kind of left college not doing any of the things that I had wanted to do and not achieving any of the goals that I had wanted to achieve. Yeah, and it was really hard and really like disappointing, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so hard to taste that success and the joy and the fun. Really having that pure sport experience in high school and then going to college and then having that like dream and fun almost betray you in a way with the injury. I think a lot of our audience can relate. I know I sure can relate because you have that taste of how amazing it is, but then to have it taken away is just so hard. So how did you process that?
Yeah, I think for me, I learned the importance of having like other outlets of joy in my life besides just running. And I think when you're part of a college team, like that's your whole social life, like that's your whole life in general. And so when that's sort of taken away from you and you're not able to have those like gossip runs with your friends and you feel so like alone and isolated. And so I learned the importance of just like finding other outlets of joy because no matter what in your life, like everything can't go well. Like you'll have seasons of life where everything's going well, but something is gonna be having a harder time. And so it's important to have other outlets of joy so that you can just be a happy person regardless of what's happening in like running or in your career or in relationships, whatever it is. So I think that was one of the things that I learned the most in my injury cycle was just to like be a complete person.
That's so profound. I'm so glad that you're sharing with us about this because even all of our runners or the people that are listening, they're all runners. They have gone through various different trials and things that have kept them from running. And it becomes, a big part of our life and we depend on it for so many things but to have the ability to find joy despite not being able to run and finding these outlets and knowing who you are outside of the sport is such a valuable thing to learn. Now, how did that help you when you returned back to running after college?
Yeah, so after college, I took a year and a half off. I like wasn't running at all. I didn't have a coach. I was still living in Boulder, and I was getting my master's degree at the time. And so when I came back to running, I knew who I was as a person, and I knew exactly what running meant to me and exactly what I wanted to get out of running. And so my relationship with running in general was just like completely different than what it had kind of spiraled into in college. And so, yeah, now I just have a bunch of fun with it and it's going better than it ever has. And I'm really, really grateful in a way for those injuries because it forced me to think about running in a different way. And now I am where I am today. And I'm extremely grateful for that.
Mm-hmm. If you wouldn't mind sharing, what was the conversation like when you joined Team Boulder and how did you articulate what you wanted out of the sport?
So my initial conversations with Lee were, it's kind of funny looking back at it. I reached out to him originally in hopes of joining the development team, which at the time he was coaching a group called Boulder Track Club. And the development team was like this sub elite running group. And it was more like chill, not as much like expectations or pressure. It wasn't like professional running. It was like, oh, you have a job and you run on the side. And at first I reached out to him under those circumstances and I was like, yeah, I'm really interested in joining your like development team. Like, I think you should really be joining our elite team. And he showed a lot of like hope, and he had a lot of confidence in me. And at that time, I didn't have a lot of hope or confidence in myself. And so that like external boost, I guess, really helped me find my own confidence. And I kind of just was really scared to dive in and do kind of the elite level training with him. But I knew in my heart that that's really what I wanted to do. I was just kind of too scared to admit it. And so he welcomed me with open arms, and the whole team was just great. And I've been training with him ever since.
Mm-hmm. And you've had amazing success, especially the last couple of years, which has been absolutely amazing to follow. So, can you tell me how you talked about this confidence piece? And I want to come back to that. We have now a snippet of what your life has been like, your running career has been like. Can you talk us through your journey of confidence through those times?
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's still a journey, you know. I'm not just showing up to starting lines now being like, wow, I'm so confident in my ability. It's something that I definitely have to work on every day, but it's something that my coach knows that I'm working on. And so he's really helped me through that. I think through college, just like not meeting expectations that I had on myself, I lost a lot of confidence in my running, but also just like me as a person. And so I'm just learning how to like, I guess like push my limits and not be scared of failure is a huge one. Yeah, and just like not back down from challenges is like one of the things that my confidence helps me do, which obviously is really important in running. Yeah, so it's just every day I'm just working on my confidence a little bit more.
You have like a full and vibrant life. It's so great to see how you're able to do so many things while being a runner at the top level. Is that a contributing factor to your confidence? Like, does that help give you confidence? Where does that lie?
Yeah, like doing things outside of running, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, I think I'm just trying to be like a really happy person. Like what we mentioned before is having like a bunch of outlets of joy. I think those outlets of joy for me, I like to do a lot of things in nature, and just find happiness in a lot of areas of my life. And I think that definitely plays into my confidence, because when I feel the most like myself is when I'm the most confident. And allowing myself to do all the things that bring me joy just makes me a stronger person. Like, and just I have confidence in my own identity. And so, yeah, I'm not comparing myself to anyone else. I'm just being the person that I am. And I think, yeah, that brings me a lot of confidence for sure.
Mm. And I read that one of your goals for your first graders is to instill confidence.
Yeah, I think, I mean, when you look at little kids, you know, in the classroom, when they have confidence, they're not scared to maybe ask more questions or push their boundaries a little bit more and explore more and challenge themselves. And so that's really what I try to instill in the kids in my class, just because that's such an important component of lifelong learning, is just being able to challenge yourself more. And that definitely directly translates to running. You know, you want to continue to explore your boundaries as an athlete and push yourself, and have higher goals and achieve goals, and then keep pushing yourself even more. Yeah, so it's great. The whole life surrounded by confidence. It's important.
Mm-hmm. And there's really not a way to do what you're doing without having some freedom in this confidence. To get, what was it, your PR, 32-second PR in the 10,000. To
Mhm.
get that big of a PR, there has to be an element of confidence that doesn't happen by accident or out of fear. Right? So, can you tell us maybe even specifically about that race? Our audience loves to hear about races. Can you
Mhm.
talk us through that 10,000 on the track?
Yeah, so that race was, I think, 3 weeks ago. That was the Sound Running 10,000. And the A goal was definitely to hit the world standard, which is 31:25. So I was 12 seconds off of it. But I think it's important to also have B goals and C goals and D goals, because every day can't be your A day. So I didn't hit my A goal, but I still got a huge PR. So I'm really happy with that. That race was really, really fun. I definitely went into it thinking, okay, world standard, let's go. And there were a lot of women who had that same kind of hope. And I unfortunately didn't hit that goal, but it was still just a great race. I was able to be in a race with some of the idols in the sport, my idols in the sport, and be neck and neck with them for a lot of the race. I went through the 5,000 faster than I ever have in a 10K, and I sort of fell back a little bit, but I was still really, really proud of that race. Yeah, it was super fun.
Yeah, and you definitely belong there. And then seeing you like Chicago in 2021 at the front, and that had to have been part of this journey and confidence too. Can you talk us through that marathon?
Yeah, definitely. I think ironically, that's one of my proudest moments so far as a professional athlete, just because I was stepping into this new arena in a way. That was my debut marathon. I'd never done any race that was close to being that long. The longest race I'd done was a half marathon, which double the distance for the marathon. And my coach and I kind of talked the night before, like we had goals of kind of what time we thought we could run. And it kind of came down to there's one pacer. There was the Sarah Hall pacer, and then there was one other pacer, and that was it. And so we were like, well, we could go out with the pacer who's running maybe a little bit too fast than what you're planning on running, but you could compete and you could be with those top girls and be with a group of girls, or you can kind of hang back and run the race sort of on your own. And so normally, maybe like college Carrie would be like, oh, I'm going to be, really timid about it. And I'm not going to go with that pacer because it's a little bit too far of a stretch. But instead, I was like, let's go. Let's do this. Let's race with those girls and let's just see how far I can hang on. And I think that I obviously fell back a little bit and I didn't hit a time that I wanted to. But at the same time, I think that really showed me like I do have confidence in myself, and it's really fun to kind of just put it out there on the line. And who cares if you fail? Like that's part of the sport. Like you're never going to push your boundaries unless you're right on that line of will I succeed or will I fail? So yeah, I was really, really proud of that day, and that race was so fun, and I can't wait to do another marathon.
That's a special feeling.
I know, I'm really lucky.
I think a lot. There are some of both. Like after my first marathon, I was like, I love this. I want to do this over and over. And my husband, the first time he did it, he said, never again, which he has. He has done it since then. He qualified for Olympic trials, so it's like, you have to, okay? Like you got the time, you got to go. But I think that's real. It is really special to have that feeling after a very gutsy marathon too, to come back and say, I want to do this again. That's
Mhm.
where when you know, like, you are made to do this sport because it's a lot of
Totally.
suffering. Like even
Oh,
though you went in there with all this confidence and you ran this great time, it's painful, right? Was it still difficult?
oh, it was definitely still difficult. Like
Okay.
yeah, it was a lot of miles left. And I was like, I am in the hurt locker. Like I remember seeing my coach on all different parts of the course, and he just kept yelling, this is the hardest thing you've ever done. And I was like, yeah, it is the hardest thing I've ever done. But yeah, and that's one of the things, like when I crossed the line, I was like, oh, I didn't really run what I thought that I was capable of. But then I instantly was like, I want to do that again. And like for that, I'm forever grateful for that first experience in a marathon because I know every marathon won't be like that. But yeah, having that first one, maybe not go exactly to plan, but still want to come back is like awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to have that confidence going in too before you even towed the line. So I guess I want to ask that question too. How do you build confidence in training? And are there other people involved in deciding what goals you should be going for? And you had said earlier, which I loved, your A, B, C, and D goals. Can you talk us through how confidence plays a role in building goals?
Yeah, I think yeah, I think you just develop confidence through like trusting the process, I'd say, which might look different for every athlete. But for me, it's just showing up to practice every day and knowing that I give it my best shot, and my best, effort on, like, depending on the day might look different, but just knowing that I'm showing up that day, giving my best effort for that day is really confidence boosting, because, you can go through weeks or months or whatever of training, and knowing that you've given your best every day makes you set up for success on race day. And you mentioned, is there anyone else a part of that confidence building circle? And I think my coaches and my teammates play a huge role in that. My coach is there at every single session with me, and so he's definitely one who can see things from a different perspective. And I really value that perspective, because sometimes you're so in your world, especially as an athlete, that you're like, oh, I can do this, this, and this. And sometimes it's really good for a coach's perspective to come in and say, actually, you're not there yet. Or actually, I see you being here, further than what you think. And so my coach, Lee Troop, his perspective is everything to me. And he helps me build my confidence, but he also helps me build those goals. So I sit down with him a couple times every season to just check in with what my goals are for certain races or for certain seasons of life. And yeah, he plays a huge role in all of that. He is really, really great about working with all of the athletes that he has, not just me. There's a lot of athletes that he coaches that have full-time jobs. And so he works really well with fitting, your life outside of running into your training. So for me, that looks like doing workouts in the afternoon, because when school starts at 7:30 in the morning, it's a little difficult, especially in the Colorado winters, to get that work done in the morning when it's freezing cold and icy and snowy and just awful. And then outside of just the career aspect of it, he knows how important it is for me to have other outlets of joy, like you said. And normally for me, that's going on hikes or camping trips or, trips to Moab for spring break. And so he's really flexible in his training. As long as, we have a really good, communication component to our relationship. And so I just let him know, hey, I'm really needing a week camping, can I do this? And he's like, yes, you can do that. Just make sure you get in your training. Or for example, I'm here in Moab with my boyfriend, and my boyfriend's a cyclist, so he's doing sort of a training stint here. And I was like, I'm spending my spring break in Moab. And he's like, get in your training. And he knows I will. So yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of confidence and trust. So when you have
definitely
the systems in your life that you can be confident and trust the people in your life that are supporting you, that are part of your inner circle, that does go a long way in helping with success, not only in running, but in life too. So that's really a great thing to hear about. And I think that's another piece of the puzzle when it comes to looking at how we can have a thriving life and build confidence that can endure the ebbs and flows of our health and our training and success. So Carrie, we've loved chatting with you on the show here today. Is there anything else you want to leave our audience with who may be struggling with confidence right now?
Yeah, I'd say, kind of bouncing off of what you just said, surround yourself with people who love you and who you trust, and just kind of create that community around you, and the confidence will bloom.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you, Carrie. Thanks for joining us on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
On the show, we talked so much about thriving, and that's why I wanted Carrie on the show today, because I feel that she does that very well. She has come into this confidence, and part of being able to build that confidence was having a thriving life. And she surrounded herself with people that are good for her, that support her, and having a well-rounded life, and that she also has taken this time away from the sport. And a lot of us feel discouraged, and we think that we need to prove something in order to gain confidence. But it actually happens, as we heard from Carrie, the other way around. You establish your confidence in who you are first, and that confidence is what allows for you to flourish. So I loved this story. It got me super geeked. As you know, I have been going through an injury journey, and many of you have too. So I would love for our takeaway to be one of hope and that all of us can create this thriving life that will help us grow in confidence. Thank you, Carrie.
Well, much appreciate that conversation and the tidbits and nuggets therein. Now, let's get on to the world of running. First up in the world of running, a quick shout out to some of our own A to Z runners, Christy and Andrew, running in Carmel and the events associated with Carmel in, where's this? Indiana. I'm trying to think of where Carmel is. In Indiana. So excellent work all around, and certainly for both, not necessarily like a main goal target race, but just getting out there and enjoying an event.
And testing that like mental aptitude, because it was another really cold race in the 30s, and they had like snow pelting their faces and terrible wind. So
Andrew, you're just bringing it with you everywhere you go.
But I this is just brief, but the next day it was so nice. It was like the last day of winter. They had to pound it out there in Indiana, but they did
jinx
great.
us, Andy. And a shout out to Lewis for running 2 long races in one weekend.
Marathon
so he did a
50K.
marathon on Saturday and 50K on Sunday if the marathon wasn't enough. And his comment was, the marathon was a good warm up. Like, okay, well, I don't know about good, but it certainly was that. Great work all around. Yeah. Very exciting to come with many of our own running the Boston Marathon upcoming as well. So much more on that.
These are exciting times. Speaking of exciting, we have some events we want to cover. There was a really close call at a race in Bermuda. And it was a USATF race, which I didn't know we did in other countries.
We'll talk about that in a moment. This is a track meet on the island of Bermuda. If you're not familiar with Bermuda and like the Bermuda Triangle and all of those kinds of things. So Bermuda is the northern tip of the Bermuda Triangle. It's like right in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. That's Bermuda. Okay. Now, it's also a sovereign territory. Well, it's part of the British British Foreign Territories is what it's called. But that being the case, this is where this meet was held. And it's the first time ever. So it's cool. It's cool.
Cool place for a lot of people to be able to compete at, and a lot of our USA athletes competed there. Now, this one doesn't have to do with that, but the men's 1500 was pretty entertaining and exciting. I'm getting this recap from Let's Run. So on paper, it looked as if Kamar Atang, a 19-year-old Kenyan who finished second at last year's Olympic trials for Kenya.
Which is really something.
Yeah.
Kenya has strong middle distance runners.
Yeah, but he didn't go to the Olympics, probably because he's so young. They
were commenting on this. It's because he was outside the testing window and at a testing pool. And I don't know exactly how that works in Kenya. It's very different than the United States. But so basically he was not qualified to be able to.
Interesting. Okay. Well, that was also an interesting tidbit. Thanks, Zach. So he ended up leading. Like, he went out super, super hard. And then he was dying, and someone had caught up to him.
Barman Track Club's Amos Bartelsmeyer.
And then he looked behind him and saw that he was being chased, and he started, like, sprinting again. But then at the finish line, he went to, like, stop his watch.
And slowed way down.
And then it was almost beat. He did end up
race.
winning by only a 1/10 of a second. But still, like, trying to stop his watch slowed him down at the end of a race.
Weird.
So,
but,
so the lesson that we can learn from Kamar is to run through the line. Strava is secondary.
Or just don't assume the race is over in any sense until it's over.
Part of what you're getting when you do an official race is not having to time it yourself. They're actually timing it for you.
But they don't post it on Strava for you. So
anyway, I'm just putting that out there. But it was also, he's a young guy, and so he'll learn from that, I am sure. But it did make for an interesting race to watch.
Part of why it was such an interesting day is because everyone kept talking about because it was so windy.
Yeah.
Now, they keep saying it was so windy, but it was like maybe up to 20-mile-an-hour winds. Like, we're really not talking about crazy winds here.
But it's not blocked.
But track runners are used to running in super controlled facilities. At this level, track runners are used to running in super controlled facilities, where it's like
a dome
or something. Never have rain, never have wind. It's never too cold. It's, that kind of stuff. And so it's not surprising that they would complain a lot.
Well,
when it's windy.
These were all events that were under 1,500 meters. Or I'm sorry, 1,500 meters
Yeah,
was
that
the
was the
longest
longest,
race. And I think that when it gets to sprinting, we can't relate to that. So like if you're doing
we don't have to be able to relate to that. We
hurdle
simply know
event,
that
I'm
the
sure
wind
it's
is not
significant.
fun. Yeah.
But they're all kind of like laughing about it. Those that like
Or-
finished and they were way
whine-
off the
or
times
whining-
that they
or
were
whining about
expecting
it.
to.
It's more like they were whining about it.
Well, we choose our attitude. Some
But-
chose happiness.
It was funny to me because one of the comments in Let's Run's message board was they do know they're running in Bermuda, right? Where it's always windy because it's a tiny island in the
Yeah.
middle of the ocean. There's
Not
nothing to
protected.
block the wind on this island.
Yeah.
So that was kind of just a funny little quip. But one final comment about the meet on
Yeah.
the whole, which is what Andy alluded to. This is a very strange scenario because USA Track and Field is hosting a meet on foreign soil.
Like,
Which-
has this been done
which-
before? If you know
We're
of a
trying
race
to
that
figure
has
this
been
out.
sanctioned by the USATF and was hosted by the USATF on foreign soil, let us know. But we think this might be the first
I
time.
don't know if it's ever happened before. Yeah, we're trying to find out, and we're trying to look at like policy, USATF policy behind like hosting meets and stuff, and we couldn't really find much clarity on that. And then, of course, the Let's Run message boards, which is the place where all good things go to die, doesn't really have much insight except for some complaints. So I don't know. We couldn't find anything. If you know, let us know because
Yeah.
we're very curious about
We're
this.
very curious.
Certainly, it seems to be unprecedented in our opinion, or at least from what we've observed.
Mhm.
Very interesting stuff.
Mhm.
Now, that aside, let's move on to what could be considered interesting news for the world in running in general, because the world's greatest running team, no surprise there, is Eliud Kipchoge's team, which is what most people know it as. It's actually got a name also. It's called the NN running team, like the letter N running team, because there's a Dutch financial services group called NN Group, and so they are the title sponsor, or they were, but their sponsorship concluded, or the contract concluded this year, and so they re-upped that contract. And the conversation really isn't so much about that. That's, of course, makes sense that they would do that, given that it is the world's greatest running team. But when you reflect on some things here, so this team started in 2017. It's not terribly old. And in the 5 years that they've been running, their team has set world records in nearly every distance of both male and female records.
Like Lintezabet Gade and
so
Joshua
5,000, 10,000
Cheptegei.
record. Yep. Joshua Cheptegei, 5,000, 10,000 record. They have Yelamzer Yahwala from Ethiopia, who has been setting records on the roads in various distances, not the marathon, but almost everything else. And certainly Eliud Kipchoge, who's,
The king of the marathon.
He's that one. But Kennedy Bekele is also on the team. Granted, he started his membership on the team after all of his accolades, and so he has not really had an amazing career in the 5 years he's been with the team. But he still ran the second fastest marathon ever, 2 seconds behind Kipchoge.
Yeah.
So
I'd say that's
yes.
pretty amazing.
And medalists. Then you start to talk about medalists, and they've got like 2 of the 3 medalists from the men's marathon in 2020. They've got all of these kinds of things, right? So this team is the greatest running team in the history of time. But what's interesting, and what's most interesting to me, is it's one of the only significant commercial or corporate running teams outside of Japan. Like one of the only ones. Is that not strange?
It is, and they're flourishing, so it gets you thinking.
You wonder.
We've had Alex Andre on the show talking about the state of the sport here in the U.S. and things that could potentially help our sport grow. These are the kinds of conversations about these sponsors outside of running gear.
And it's especially interesting when you think about, too, what kinds of dollars do you have to throw around to like sponsor a team of this caliber? And the answer is like chump change compared to money going into other sports.
Especially with these humongous corporations.
With these mega corporations, or these just really, these really wealthy corporations. Because their other sponsors, non-title sponsors, include Abbott, the medical group, includes, what was that other one that... Well, anyway, Ineos. I'm trying to think of the one who sponsored the 2-hour race. Ineos, which is another global group. So like these kinds of things, and it's nothing compared to the money going into like European soccer leagues or American NFL and basketball leagues, things like that. So that's interesting to us because, why is there not more of this when the barrier to entry is so low for these big companies that have plenty of funds? We know that in Japan, the corporate running scene is just a massive, like they've got dozens and dozens of teams with more financing or as much financing as this NN running team. And they have like, these huge corporate challenges every year and like corporate nationals. Anyway, so we don't know, but there's something there worth reflecting on. So this team is going to continue on under the NN label for now, 3 more year re-up contract, and we get to hopefully see plenty more out of that. We already know that Kipchoge is going for another gold. He has announced at least that he wants to.
Yeah.
Whether that means he will for sure, time will tell. But he's at least trying to get all the marathon majors as well. So
all his stars.
Things.
Yep.
Good stuff.
Now, moving away from professional running into a very cool human interest story, the youngest woman to compete in 1,000 marathons.
Complete 1,000
Just
marathons.
Completed her 1,000th in Texas on April 2nd.
Yeah.
That's a lot of marathons, folks.
Wow. 1,000 marathons. So she is 54 years old. She did not start running until she was 29 years old. So her first marathon being, as far as we are aware, in her 29th year. And so in 25 years, she ran 1,000 marathons.
That's a lot.
Do a little bit of math here. That's 40 marathons a year on average. Now, she didn't do that every year because her best year, which is the Guinness Book of World Records, from September of 2012 to August of 2013, so that calendar year, or that 12-month period, rather, she ran 129 marathons. So that's
a lot.
Like
a third of the year. More than a third of the year.
2.5 a week, basically. Okay, so that's something.
Yeah.
Now, it should be noted, like, what is she doing here? Because she's not going and entering in a race for every one of these 1,000 marathons. Someone on the Let's Run message board was like, how does she pay for all of this? That would cost like millions and millions of dollars. No. She's not running official races every time she does it. So there's some amount of like, that how official are some of these things? Who knows? But somehow it's documented in a way that is worth giving her the credit. Yeah. So that's good. That's impressive. The other comment about it is what kinds of efforts is she doing here? Because clearly you can't run 2.5 marathons a week for
full effort
for that 1 year at like maximum
race,
effort. That's not possible. You would break. So obviously she's not doing that. But the question then becomes the significance of the endeavor and just going out and consistently doing this for 25 years. And that's cool.
Her average is between 6 and 7 hours for the marathons, and her personal best is around 5 hours. And I did want to mention this, Zach. According to a tweet, Angela never intended to run a second marathon after her first one.
It was that good, huh?
You said the same thing, and now look at you. Maybe you're going to be the next one.
Yeah, I've done like 5.
Turn
She's
1,000.
done 1,000. I am never doing 1,000 marathons.
I'm just saying, she started in a place of not thinking she would ever do another marathon into having it be a regular part of her life, and now having these accolades. So, anyway, congrats to Angela.
That's good stuff.
To Taurus.
Very exciting. Well done. Now, we've got just a little bit of bonus as well because Andy just can't stop talking about
Brittany Charbonneau. Yeah, she was on our show talking about creativity on the run. She's also known as the funny runner. She's a coach. She's an athlete. So she won Lake's Sonoma 50, and that was her first ever 50-mile race.
Okay.
With over 10,500 feet of elevation.
Gain?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep, that's significant.
Brittany ran 7 hours and 27 minutes. That's 7:07 pace for 50 miles.
Yeah.
Her first one. Yeah.
Yep.
So congratulations to Brittany. We told you we'd continue to keep you updated on her athletic career. So this is just another great accolade and also introduction to the 50-mile distance. And she obviously is very good at it. So we're excited to see more from her in the ultra realm.
Definitely that. Well done, Brittany, and amazing and interesting things happening all the time. The next time that you hear from us, we're going to be talking about the Boston Marathon as well. So that will be exciting.
So exciting.
But between now and then, here's what you need to do. You first need to stop and think. And what you need to think about is, do you have what you need to thrive as a runner? Do you know the things you need to know? Do you have the people around you? Remember our conversation with Carrie, do we have the support around us? Do we have the information and all of these kinds of things? And the reason I'm asking you that is simply because we love to help connect some of those dots for you, if we can. So certainly one of the many ways we do that is just send us your questions, send us your thoughts, and comment on the things. Get involved in conversations because it's very enlivening and enriching for all of us when we can do that. But if you feel like you need something more and it's just not there for you yet, head to AtoZrunning.com, click on the word coaching, by the way, fully redesigned coaching services page. So it'll be a new experience if you've been to that page yet already. And you should find there some potential to connect further if you think we might be able to help you out.
Yeah. And in addition to those services, obviously it's free to subscribe to the A to Z Running podcast, where our goal is to help you thrive as a runner. You can also subscribe at AtoZrunning.com for even more content, because we really do find joy, and it is truly our mission to help you flourish. So thanks so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you next week.